So one of the big variables was going to be who voted and what the makeup, what the nature of the electorate was going to be. And historically, you had something like 700,000 to 800,000 people vote in these kinds of races. And the question was whether turnout goes up because the city's in a very tough spot, and this was an historic election. And turnout did not go up to the point that you might have hoped. I think right now, how many votes have been cast, Zach?
Almost 800,000. Just on 799, 827.
So you might have something like 900,000 votes. So that's not that different from the 800,000 in the last race. So it's an uptick, to be sure. It's maybe a 10% uptick. But you're still looking at the likely winners being decided by, I don't know, maybe like 300,000 votes or so, which would be something like 4% of the population, maybe less. There are 3.2 million registered Democrats. So let's call it fewer than 30% of registered Democrats actually turned out to vote. And I will say that a number of people expressed to me that they wanted to vote, but they weren't registered Democrats, and so they couldn't. Like, they were independents, they couldn't. You had to change your registration back in February. They didn't know that. There was one person who said to me he was working Families Party, and he thought that that meant that he could vote in this election, but he couldn't because you had to be a registered Democrat. So that was to me something that's a continuation of the reality of most elections, really, in a lot of different environments. But in New York City, where Bill de Blasio got elected with 280,000 votes back in 2013, which is, again, maybe 4% of the city, I think you're going to wind up with a similar number this time, where you have like a fairly narrow band of voters that determine the leadership in the city. A significant proportion of those voters are very, very attached to city government in some way, or like an institution that works for the city in some way. And so you didn't have the massive increase that you'd hope for in this context. And this is something that certainly we talked about a lot on the campaign. But this speaks to me to be even bigger, where we have to make it, in my opinion, easier to vote in elections like this for people of any party. And certainly, if someone does want to vote, we should make it easier to do so. There are other places that have same-day registration, as an example, where you can show up and just make that registration happen.
So we have 3.5 million registered voters in New York, of probably 4 to 5 million people who are eligible to vote in the city of an 8 million population, something around there. And you only get 800,000 or so to actually vote. It's crazy how much people don't give a shit about either local politics or mayor or just anything political in general. What I learned, people should care, because the mayor has a lot of say, a lot of control of how the individual lives are of people in the city. Is it that they don't care? They don't know to care. They're distracted by other things. Is it the society of scarcity, mindset of scarcity you talk about, where people are too busy trying to pay rent to care about voting or community involvement? Why do we not give a shit?
Generally speaking, having the ability to care about politics is something of a luxury good. Truly, you do have other basic needs to attend to. And then if you decide to care too, is that I met so many awesome candidates around the city who were running for a city council or comptroller or other positions. And a lot of them were going to lose, but they were still working their hearts out, and they had volunteers who were working their hearts out. It's really lovely and beautiful. The ability to engage on that level, I think, is something that most people might not have because they're busy paying the bills. They're busy scrambling to take care of their kids in particular ways. I think it's sometimes tough to care because a lot of times your candidate doesn't win. It's hard. And so there's something that I think ends up hardening you, like you can become more jaded through the process. What's interesting is that I think most people sense that, like I have an intention to help people and, like have big visions. And we activated a lot of people around those visions nationally. And then I ran for office in New York City, and translating that vision and optimism to people was difficult for a number of reasons. But I think a lot of people that had been in politics for a while, had just become accustomed to the particular way that things happen. I think a lot of people ignore it because they sense that there are these things going on that that they're not sure that they'll be able to influence. And if they invest a lot of time and energy trying to make it happen, then, their efforts may not be rewarded. So in a way, people not caring is rational, which is kind of sad. Like that's one of the things that I'd like to try and change. I want to make it rational to care.
Yeah, if government doesn't work for you, why would you work to elect people into the government, right? I mean, if you think you're going to meet the new boss, same as the old boss, then why bother? Let me ask you this. You talked a lot about ranked choice voting. I know you're going to write about that in your upcoming book. And we talked about the need for breaking the duopoly, so there's more parties to engage more types of people and more people with different ideologies. And you don't feel like you have a false choice. But that probably, at least my opinion, but I think I'm right, is that it probably won't increase the amount of people who care, exponentially or enough. One solution that's been offered, and I don't think we've ever talked about it, is mobile voting. And with like blockchain technology, and you can make that hyper secure theoretically. Have you thought about mobile voting or other solutions to get more people to vote and care?
Yeah, I have thought about mobile voting. I have friends who are working on it. Even if you enable mobile voting, right now, the folks that run these elections are the political parties. And I don't believe would actually adopt mobile voting, even though it would theoretically dramatically increase turnout, which is one of the problems. So I'd love to enable that. I want to make it easier to vote. I want more people to be able to vote. I think that is the answer moving forward. Certainly, this set of experiences has made that even clearer to me. And for those of you who have been following us and the podcast for a while, first, thank you. Really grateful. You should know that we are just getting started. We have these big plans for how we can help solve some of the problems that I ran for president on. And that's always the big goal, is like, how are we actually going to further the vision? I believe that running for mayor would help us further the vision. I think I was right. Despite the outcome, I think I was right. We certainly learned a ton, made a lot of new friends, and have a firmer sense of just what we need to do. But mobile voting is part of it, Zach. Making it so that people have genuine choices and that the process isn't as constrained is a part of it. Trying to get more people to care and make politics less of like this insidery thing where you have to subscribe to like particular behaviors and like commitments and whatnot in order to have any kind of stature or say, I think is a part of it. So the plan is still in effect. It's like, and one of the reasons I'm grateful to people who are listening is that I know over the last number of weeks, it's been kind of a series of non sequiturs, really. But we're going to get back toward building up the agenda and the movement pretty quickly. The vision is still very clear, and I'm as excited as ever. Like that, and this race has helped us figure things out and learn a lot.